The first thing I noticed when I walked into his apartment wasn't the furniture, or the smell of coffee lingering in the air, but his eyes sharp, dark, and watching me like I had already done something wrong. The second thing was how badly I wanted to stay anyway. I wasn't supposed to feel that. Not then. Not after everything I had lost. I only wanted a roof, a bed, maybe a door that locked. Nothing more. Certainly not this sudden heat that curled in my chest as my landlord leaned against the counter and smirked like he knew every secret I carried. "Rent's due the 1st of the month," he said. His voice was low, steady, carrying a weight that made me straighten my back like I was already failing a test. "No excuses." I nodded. "I'll have it." I didn't even know if that was true. The truth was, I was one paycheck away from being swallowed by the streets of New York. The truth was, my family had stopped answering my calls months ago. And the truth, the one that pressed hard and unwanted against my ribs, was that I couldn't stop staring at him. His name was Marcus, 32, former Marine, if the scars on his arm told any story close to the truth. The kind of man who looked like he had seen more than anyone should, yet still carried himself like nothing could touch him. And I was Ethan, 24, lost. A boy who had run too fast and too far, now desperate enough to sign a lease with a stranger whose silence felt louder than most people's shouts. I told myself it was fine, just a place to stay, just 4 walls. But that night, lying on a mattress that smelled faintly of him soap and smoke, I understood that just was a lie. It began in small things. The way Marcus always brewed 2 cups of coffee even before I admitted I drank mine black. The way he left an extra blanket on the couch the night the heating broke, muttering something about city winters eating people alive. The way his hand brushed mine when we both reached for the light switch, and neither of us pulled back fast enough. "You're quiet," he said once. When we sat at the tiny kitchen table, the hum of the fridge the only sound between us. "So are you?" I shot back. His lips twitched. Maybe that's why this works. I didn't know what this was. A lease? A truce? A fragile thread I was terrified of snapping? But I felt it. God, I felt it every time his gaze lingered on me just a second too long. Every time his voice softened, only for me. Every time I caught him standing in the doorway of my room, like he wanted to say something but swallowed it instead. And every time my chest ached with something dangerous. Dangerous because I hadn't told him everything. Dangerous because I couldn't. See, the night I moved in wasn't random. I hadn't just stumbled across the listing. I had been running from mistakes, from debt, from people who didn't forgive as easily as Marcus's eyes pretended to. I had secrets buried deep, and Marcus's apartment wasn't supposed to be a sanctuary. It was supposed to be a hiding place. But hiding places don't look at you like they see through every mask. Hiding places don't offer you a second cup of coffee and ask about your day. Hiding places don't lean over your shoulder, their breath warm against your skin, as they fix the squeaky lock on your window. Hiding places don't feel like home. And yet, the breaking point came on a Thursday night. I was half asleep on the couch, worn thin from another double shift, when Marcus walked in, jacket soaked from rain. His jaw was tight, his fists clenched, his whole body humming with the kind of tension that makes you hold your breath before you even know why. "You okay?" I asked, sitting up. For a moment, he didn't answer. Just stood there, dripping on the hardwood, eyes locked on mine. And then, like a crack in armor, he whispered, "No." The word hung between us, raw and sharp. Before I could stop myself, I was on my feet, closing the distance. My hand hovered near his arm, not touching, not daring. His breath came fast, uneven, like he was holding back more than just words. "Talk to me," I said. He laughed, bitter, broken. "You don't want to hear it." "Yes, I do." And maybe that was the mistake. Or maybe it was the only truth I had left. Because when his walls finally crashed, when he told me about the nightmares, the guilt, the weight he carried like a second skin, I didn't run. Couldn't. Instead, I touched him. Just a hand, steady on his arm. But the way his eyes closed, the way his body leaned into mine, it was enough to rewrite every rule I had set for myself. That was the night everything shifted. It wasn't love, not yet. Love was too big a word. Too dangerous. Too heavy for two men standing in a kitchen at midnight, clinging to silence like a lifeline. But it was something. Something that curled warm in my chest, that made me want to stop running, that made me want to believe I deserved to stay. And as I looked at Marcus, at the man who was supposed to be just my landlord, just four walls and a roof, I realized the truth I had been avoiding. I hadn't just found a place to stay. I had found the most dangerous thing of all. Place to belong. I didn't sleep that night. Not because Marcus said too much or because he said too little, but because of the weight of his body leaning, however briefly, into mine. That tiny surrender haunted me, echoing through my chest long after he had gone to his room. I lay on the couch, staring at the cracked ceiling, the sound of the storm outside folding into the storm inside my ribs. For weeks, I had convinced myself that this was survival, that I was only here because I needed walls, locks, and a landlord willing to look the other way. But survival didn't make my chest tighten when I thought of him. Survival didn't make me crave the warmth of his voice when he finally let it crack. And survival didn't scare me like this. The next morning, Marcus was already in the kitchen when I dragged myself up. He looked normal, coffee steaming in his mug, hair slightly damp from a shower, that same old guarded expression in place. If not for the shadows in his eyes, I might have believed I'd imagined it all. "Morning," I said cautiously. He glanced at me, then back at his mug. "Morning." Silence. The same silence we had always shared, but heavier now, like every unsaid thing had pulled up a chair between us. I busied myself with pouring coffee, pretending my hands weren't shaking. "About last night," I started. "Forget it." His tone was clipped, final. My chest stung. "Marcus," I said, "forget it." The words were a wall slamming down, but the look in his eyes betrayed him. He wasn't asking me to forget. He was begging. And for once I listened. But forgetting wasn't easy. Every glance became a question. Every touch, however accidental, became a promise I didn't know how to keep. Like the time our shoulders brushed on the couch, neither of us moving away. Or the night he came home late, bruised knuckles hidden poorly in his pocket, and I pressed ice against his skin while his jaw clenched and unclenched in silence. Or when I caught him staring at me across the kitchen, his gaze softer than I thought he knew how to be, before he turned away like it burned him. We were orbiting each other, dangerously close, dangerously inevitable. But I had my own cracks. My job barely covered rent. My past was catching up to me, phone calls I didn't answer, names I didn't speak, debts I couldn't pay. And the more Marcus looked at me like I was worth something, the more terrified I became of him finding out the truth. One evening, I came home to find him fixing the lock on the back door. He was kneeling on the floor, sleeves rolled up, muscles flexing as he worked. I froze in the doorway, torn between wanting to run and wanting to kneel beside him. "You're late," he said without looking up. "Sorry. Work ran over." "Eat." "Not yet." He grunted, a sound that was both annoyance and concern. Then he glanced at me, his dark eyes narrowing. "You look like hell." I almost laughed. "You don't hold back, do you?" "Not my style." He stood, wiping his hands on a rag. "Sit. I'll make something." I stared. "You cook." He smirked faintly. "Don't look so shocked. Marines don't survive on takeout." I wanted to tell him he didn't have to, that I wasn't his responsibility. But the truth was I sat. And when he put a plate of scrambled eggs and toast in front of me, something inside me cracked wider than before. No one had done this for me in years. The tension built slowly, like a storm gathering on the horizon. It broke one night, when I couldn't hold my own silence anymore. We were sitting at the table, dishes between us, the faint hum of the city beyond the window. I had been watching his hands, scarred, steady, strong, and the words slipped out before I could stop them. "Do you ever get tired of being alone?" His head snapped up, eyes narrowing. "What?" "I just mean, you live here, you work, you come home. Don't you ever want more?" He leaned back, studying me with that unreadable expression. "And what exactly do you think more looks like?" I swallowed, throat dry. "Maybe someone to share it with." His gaze sharpened. "You offering?" The air froze. My heart slammed against my ribs. I wanted to laugh it off, to turn it into a joke, but his tone wasn't teasing. It was raw, dangerous, like a challenge and a confession all at once. "I don't know," I admitted softly. "Maybe." For a long time he just stared at me. Then he stood abruptly, chair scraping against the floor. "Don't," he muttered, his voice rough. "Don't say things you don't mean." And he walked out, leaving me with the echo of my own heartbeat. The days after were unbearable. He avoided me more than usual, leaving early, coming home late. When we did cross paths, his words were clipped, his eyes guarded. I told myself it didn't matter, that I had only dug my own grave. But every time I saw the tension in his jaw, every time I caught the flicker of something vulnerable in his gaze before he looked away, the ache grew worse. It all came crashing down one Friday night. I was in the kitchen, scrubbing dishes, when I heard the door slam. Marcus stormed in, fists clenched, chest heaving like he had run from something or someone. "Marcus, don't." His voice was sharp, but shaking. I dropped the sponge, heart pounding. "What happened?" He looked at me, and for the first time I saw him break. His eyes burned, not with anger, but with something rawer, more dangerous. "I can't do this," he said hoarsely. "Do what?" "This." He gestured between us, frustration carving lines into his face. "You, me, whatever the hell this is. I can't." I swallowed hard. "Then tell me to leave." He froze. "Tell me to pack my things and go," I whispered. "If you really don't want this, if you really don't feel it, then say the words and I'll walk out that door tonight." The silence was unbearable. His chest rose and fell, his fists trembling at his sides. And then, in a voice barely above a whisper, he said, "I can't." Something inside me shattered and healed in the same breath. I crossed the space between us before I even realized I was moving. My hand brushed his, testing, trembling. He didn't pull away. His fingers curled, hesitating, then holding mine like it was the only thing keeping him upright. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The city roared outside, but in here it was only him. Only me. Only the dangerous, fragile truth we could no longer ignore. That was the night Marcus kissed me. It wasn't gentle. It wasn't sweet. It was desperate, rough, like he had been holding it back for years and finally couldn't anymore. His mouth crashed into mine, and I let him, my own hands gripping his shirt like I was afraid he'd vanish if I let go. And in that kiss, that messy, breathless, aching kiss, I finally understood. I hadn't been running from danger all this time. I had been running straight into it. And God help me, I didn't want to stop. The kiss should have ruined everything. Instead, it lit the fuse. When Marcus finally pulled back, both of us breathless, his hands still fisted in my shirt, the silence between us was deafening. His dark eyes searched mine, wild and conflicted, like he was both terrified of what he'd done and terrified of what would happen if he stopped. "Marcus," I whispered. My voice broke on his name. "Don't," he rasped, shaking his head, like even hearing me say it was too much. His words strangled in his throat, and for the first time since I'd met him, he looked lost. I should have stepped back. I should have given him space. Instead, I closed the gap again, pressing my forehead to his, holding on to the one truth I couldn't run from anymore. "I don't want to forget this," I whispered. His jaw clenched. "You don't know what you're asking for." "Then show me." That broke him. What followed was messy, clumsy, frantic, two men who didn't know how to want without breaking themselves on it. His hands were rough, calloused, trembling as they cupped my face, trailed down my back, held me like I might disappear. I couldn't stop touching him either, couldn't stop proving to myself that he was real, that this was real. Every kiss was a confession, every breath a risk. We stumbled into the bedroom, neither of us thinking beyond the pull of need. Clothes were discarded like lies we no longer had the strength to tell. His body was heat and scars and strength wrapped in fragility he would never admit. Mine was all sharp edges and hunger and the kind of vulnerability that begged to be seen. And in the quiet moments between gasps, between kisses, I understood the truth I had been running from. I wasn't just staying here because I had nowhere else to go. I was staying because leaving Marcus had already become impossible. After, the room smelled of rain and sweat and something new we didn't dare name. Marcus lay on his back, chest rising and falling like he had just fought a battle and barely survived it. I lay beside him, staring at the cracked ceiling, too afraid to move in case it broke the spell. Finally, he spoke. "This can't happen again." The words stabbed deep, though his hand was still tangled with mine beneath the sheets. "Then why did it happen tonight?" I asked softly. His jaw tightened. "Because I'm weak." I turned, propping myself on my elbow, searching his face. "No. Because you're human." For a moment, his eyes softened, vulnerable in a way I had never seen before. Then the walls slammed back into place, and he rolled onto his side, back facing me. "Go to sleep, Ethan." I stared at him for a long time, the distance in his body colder than the city outside. But even as fear twisted inside me, I held onto the memory of his lips, his hands, his whispered surrender. Because no matter how hard he tried to bury it, I knew the truth. He wanted this as much as I did. The days after were complicated. He kept his distance, throwing up walls higher than ever, but they were cracked now. I saw the way his gaze lingered on me when he thought I wasn't looking. I felt the hesitation in his hands when he brushed past me in the kitchen. I caught the silence that stretched too long when our eyes locked across the room. And I hated it. I hated pretending that night hadn't happened. I hated carrying the weight of it alone while he buried himself in denial. And more than anything, I hated how badly I wanted him, even when he refused to admit he wanted me to. One night I snapped. We were in the living room, him on the couch, me pacing like a storm. "Are we really going to act like none of this happened?" I demanded. His eyes flicked up, sharp. "Drop it, Ethan." "No. I'm done dropping it. I'm done pretending I don't feel what I feel. And I'm done pretending you don't either." His jaw clenched, fists tightening on his knees. "You don't know what you're talking about." "Yes, I do." My voice cracked. That night it meant something. To me. And to you, whether you admit it or not. For a moment, his eyes burned with fire, like he might finally explode. Instead, he stood, towering over me, every muscle tense with restraint. "You think you know me?" he hissed. "You think one kiss, one night, makes you understand who I am? You have no idea the kind of man I am, Ethan." "Then tell me," I whispered, my voice shaking. "Show me. Stop hiding from me. Stop hiding from yourself." His breath came ragged, his chest heaving. For a moment, I thought he would confess everything, give in to the truth between us. But instead, he stormed past me, grabbing his jacket. "Don't wait up," he muttered, and slammed the door behind him. I sank onto the couch, heart shattering. I had pushed too hard. I had asked for too much. And now maybe I had lost him. But even as tears burned in my eyes, I knew this wasn't over. Not yet. Because love, or whatever dangerous thing this was, didn't just vanish because he was afraid. And Marcus was terrified. He didn't come home that night, or the night after. By the third night, fear gnawed at me so hard I couldn't breathe. What if something had happened? What if he was gone for good? What if I had ruined everything with my stubborn heart? Then, just after midnight, the door creaked open. Marcus staggered in, bruised, blood on his lip, eyes hollow. My heart lurched, and I rushed to him before I could think. "Marcus, what the hell?" "Don't," he muttered, trying to brush past me. "No," I snapped, grabbing his arm. "You don't get to disappear for 3 days. Come home looking like this, and tell me not to ask questions." He flinched, pain flashing in his eyes. "Marcus, please," I whispered, softer now. "Talk to me." For a moment, he just stared at me, broken and cornered. Then he sank onto the couch, head in his hands. "I can't keep doing this," he said hoarsely. "I can't keep letting you in. Because if I do, I'll destroy you." My chest ached. I knelt in front of him, taking his bruised hands in mine. "You're not going to destroy me," I said fiercely. "You're going to save me." And maybe I can save you too. His eyes lifted to mine, wet, desperate, searching. And in that moment, I knew the fight wasn't over. It was only beginning. Marcus didn't let me bandage his wounds right away. He sat there, silent, shoulders rigid, while I fetched the first aid kit from under the sink. His jaw was tight, eyes fixed on a crack in the floorboards, like if he stared hard enough, the truth would stay buried. But when I touched the cut on his lip with a cotton swab, his whole body flinched. Not from pain, but from me. "Relax," I murmured. "I can't." His voice was barely above a whisper. "Then let me do it for you." Slowly, painfully, his shoulders loosened, and as I cleaned the blood from his skin, my hands steady against his bruises, something shifted between us. He wasn't just a landlord anymore. He wasn't just a man built of scars and silence. He was someone who trusted me enough to let me see him break. And that trust meant more than any kiss we'd shared. Later that night, after the wounds were cleaned and silence hung heavy, he finally spoke. "I was in the Corps for 8 years, he began, his voice rough. "Saw more things than I'll ever admit. Buried more men than I can count. When I came back, I thought I'd left it all there. But it followed me. Every night, every face, every mistake. I sat quietly, heart breaking with every word. I drink too much. I fight too much. I don't let anyone close." Because he stopped, swallowing hard. "Because when I do, I lose them. And I can't lose anyone else." The air between us trembled with his confession. "You won't lose me," I said softly. He looked at me then, really looked like I was the one thing he wanted to believe in but couldn't. "You don't know that," he whispered. I squeezed his hand. "No. But I know I want to stay. And maybe that's enough for now." The weeks that followed weren't simple. Some nights he still woke screaming. Some mornings he was distant, retreating into silence I couldn't reach. But then there were the small things, the way he made me coffee before work, the way he lingered in the kitchen just to hear me talk about my day, the way his hand brushed mine on the couch and didn't pull away. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. And real was more than I had ever hoped for. But the past has a way of catching up. One evening, I found an envelope slipped under the door. My name scribbled across it. Inside, a single note: "You still owe us. Time's running out." My blood ran cold. I had been running for so long, I'd almost convinced myself I was safe. But debts don't disappear, and neither do the men who collect them. I thought about hiding it, pretending nothing had happened. But Marcus noticed the second I shoved the envelope into my pocket. "What's that?" he asked sharply. "Nothing. Bullshit." His tone cut like glass. "Show me." I froze. "Ethan." His voice was steady now, but laced with something dangerous. "Show me." Reluctantly, I handed it over. He read it, jaw tightening, eyes darkening in a way that scared me. "Who?" "Marcus, please, who?" he demanded, his voice shaking with fury. I swallowed hard. "Just people I owed money to, back before I came here. I thought I could get ahead. I didn't." The silence stretched, heavy as stone. "You should have told me." His voice cracked, not with anger, but with hurt. "I didn't want you to see me like that." He stared at me for a long time, then set the note down with trembling hands. "Ethan, I already see you. All of you. And I'm still here." My chest tightened, tears burning my eyes. "But if they come, then they'll answer to me." His tone left no room for argument. And they did come. 2 nights later, shadows waited outside the building. Marcus saw them first, his instincts sharp, protective. He didn't let me open the door. He didn't let me speak. He stepped outside, shoulders squared, every inch of him radiating the Marine who had survived worse than this. I watched through the blinds, heart hammering. Words were exchanged, fists threatened. But Marcus didn't flinch. He stood like a wall, unshakable, until the men finally backed down, muttering promises that felt hollow against his steel. When he came back inside, his hands still shaking, I threw my arms around him. "You could have been hurt," I whispered, voice breaking. "So could you." His grip tightened around me, I'm not letting anyone take you from me. Not ever. And for the first time, I believed him. Spring came slowly, the city thawing under pale sunlight. With it came a fragile peace. The debts faded into silence, or maybe they just realized Marcus was a line they didn't want to cross. My job steadied. The apartment began to feel less like a hiding place and more like a home. And Marcus began to let me in. He told me about the men he'd served with, about the nightmares that clawed at his sleep, about the guilt he carried, heavy as the scars on his skin. And I told him about my mistakes, my regrets, the parts of myself I had tried so hard to bury. We didn't fix each other, but we stopped pretending we didn't need to try. One night, as we lay on the couch, his arm draped over my shoulder, my head resting against his chest, he whispered something that made my breath catch. "You're the first person I've let stay." I tilted my head to look at him. "What do you mean?" He hesitated, then smiled faintly, almost shy. "People come and go. I never wanted anyone here long enough to matter. But you matter." The words hit harder than any kiss. I pressed my lips to his, soft and certain. "So do you." Months later, we stood together on the balcony, city lights glowing below us. The air was warm, the kind that hinted at summer. Marcus's hand was warm in mine, steady and sure. "You still think this is dangerous?" I asked quietly. He smirked, glancing at me with those dark eyes that no longer hid as much. "Hell yes, but maybe dangerous isn't always bad." I laughed softly, leaning into him. "Then I guess we're both reckless." His arm wrapped around me, pulling me close. Reckless enough to stay. And in that moment, with the city spread out before us and his heartbeat steady against my side, I knew the truth. I hadn't just found a place to stay. I had found the one place I belonged. Thank you for listening. If you find it interesting, please like and subscribe to follow the next stories.